Welcome into another edition of Region Roundup. I'm James Boyd here with Mike Clark for another edition of our podcast, the last one before Christmas. So, Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, thanks. I'm working over, we're going to go a little bit out of sequence on our plan here that we just a note to our listeners. James and I usually come up with a schedule for the pod, and this was actually going to be the last item, but let's talk about it now. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be working on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and part of that is I don't have any family close by, and obviously I'm not going to see my friends right now, and I would hope that the folks who are listening to us are still taking everything seriously, masking up, social distancing, not going to parties for sure, even though a lot of folks in Chicago are doing that, which I'm seeing on social media, unfortunately. Not mixing with other households. So I'm doing good. I'm taking a little bit of time off at the beginning of the week, actually, and it's good because I can actually get some errands run and stuff like that. But that's what I'm going to be doing over the holidays, and it's such a strange year. Like, I don't know. I mean, it almost feels like a drinking game to say that because we do it so often. That's one of the things that I've actually done for a while. I don't want to get, too off topic here. This is a sports podcast, but maybe, we can shed a little bit of light on the personal side of it too. I had a tradition for a while of going out to visit my brother in Tucson over the Christmas holiday because it's a lot warmer in Tucson, among other things. So that was kind of a cool thing. And I did kind of get away from it the last few years, and I'm kind of really missing it right now. This year, with all the stuff that's gone on, I really would have liked to have resumed that tradition, but I'm not getting on a plane anytime soon, and he has told me he's not getting on a plane to come here anytime soon, so we will have to put that off until 2021. But I'm guessing that you are having some family stuff going on. I know, obviously, you live with your family right now, and we've talked about your grandma, I think, on the pod before, and how important she is as a role model and mentor for you. And I guess hopefully you can at least get some Zoom time with her over the holidays.
Yeah, I'll definitely call her on Christmas, and I have no idea what my Christmas will look like. I know it'll involve at least sleeping in for the first time in forever. Between, I guess, me, you, and the podcast crew, finishing up all area football, doing girls basketball mini articles, boys basketball mini articles, and trying to keep up with the COVID-19 updates, things like that. I have a lot of work to do between now and Christmas Eve, so I know I'll be burning the candle at both ends to get everything done. Not only done, but done well. I think that's the part that kind of always pushes me to have a lack of sleep. But it's like, I want it to be done well and not just done. So that's what I'll be doing prior to Christmas. And Christmas Day, I'll probably be running a few errands with my family just to drop off some gifts at some of our families, or some of our extended family. Of course, I won't be going to anybody's house. I'll be, ringing the doorbell and leaving it on the porch and just calling them, let them know it's outside. That's pretty much it. I'll do the same for my grandma. I believe my mom has ordered her like a robe. And then my grandma's really simple. For those of you who don't know, like, she is just not the person that ever wants anything. And that's like the sincerest way I can put it. She'll actually probably be upset if you go out and spend like $100 on something that she doesn't want. So we're very forthcoming in this family. The boy tradition is basically asking, what do you want for Christmas? The only person I really don't do that with is my dad. He's pretty easy to shop for. Mom and my sister, oh, God bless them. Like, they can tell me what they want. They'll pick it out, Mike, and then they'll tell me, after they get it, after they felt it, after they tried it on, we'll get home. And 3 days later, they're like, oh, I don't know if I want this anymore. So I've learned, from years past to just, ask them, what do you want specifically? And then, get a gift receipt. And then after that, it's in your hands. But yeah.
I know that I guarantee you that the number one thing on your grandma's Christmas list is for everybody to be healthy and happy, and for you to be able to see her in person, maskless, sometime in 2021.
Yeah, and what's cool is my pastor, he's actually a doctor, Dr. Horace E. Smith for Apostolic Faith Church. He got vaccinated today. He's been encouraging everyone in my community, as far as my church community in Bronzeville. A lot of people of color, a lot of black people, just been encouraging them to trust the vaccine, to get the vaccine. And me and my grandma have been talking about it, and trust me, when it's ready, we'll be in line to get it. But that's basically it. I mean, it's pretty chill day as far as Christmas and even the holiday season. I mean, just what we've been doing all year, and that's just trying to stay safe. But in that same breath, there will be some games to watch around the holidays, and one of them will be the Arizona Bowl between Ball State and San Jose State. And Ball State actually just won its first MAC championship since 1996. I had the pleasure of talking to a former Maryville player, Justin Ramsey, spelled Justen, for those of you who don't know. Which way you got to ask to spell names. But yeah, I talked to him. He's a guy that I've known since I got hired in the region, actually. He was our 2018 Defensive Player of the Year at the Times. Kind of followed his career since. And throughout all this crazy pandemic season, the MAC was actually the first, major conference in football to cancel their fall season. And they flipped that decision and reinstated football. And now Ball State is the MAC champ. So it was a pretty cool story to write, just because I kind of followed along with Justin and his emotions where, 4 months ago we're talking, and he's like, oh my gosh, like I won't play football this year at all. To now he's like, man, I was sitting there with my hat on, like, is this for real? Did we just win the MAC? So that was a really cool thing to write about and just fun to be involved with.
Yeah, and I believe we have some more coverage coming as well.
Yes.
There are other local players for the Cardinals. This is kind of an interesting game, actually, too, for those who may not follow college football a ton. San Jose State beat Boise State to win the Mountain West. That's the tie-in here. It's the MAC champ against the Mountain West champ. And San Jose State was, I believe, 0-16 against Boise State all time until they won this year. So that's kind of a cool thing, too. Again, first time for Ball State win the MAC for 24 years. First time, I believe, that San Jose State has won the Mountain West. So, and, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here because we can. And, one of the storylines that's going on right now is with all the stuff that's going on through college football this year, conferences canceling, coming back, et cetera, losing games because of COVID and everything. And it's been kind of a crazy week already, and it's only Tuesday as we record this. So Army, as a lot of people may have heard, was going to the Independence Bowl, and then the Independence Bowl canceled the game because their Army's opponent wasn't going to be able to play. So Army was looking at sitting there at 9-2 and not having a game to go to. And then it winds up that they're going to the Liberty Bowl, South Carolina, which got a bowl bid at 2-8, with an interim coach, no less. They fired their coach during the season, and people are like, what's going on here? And what's going on here is because these bowls have conference tie-ins, basically. That's the way the bowl system works in a normal year. Obviously, this isn't a normal year, but, the SEC has X number of bowl bids, the Big Ten, so on down the line. And that's why South Carolina was the next in line in the SEC to go to this bowl. Anyway, Army has a happy ending to its story, but UAB, which won Conference USA, is currently without a bowl because their bowl got canceled because their opponent decided it wasn't going to be able to play. So, a lot of people have thought that the bowl system is kind of broken anyway. There are too many of them. A lot of people think, even in a normal year, we were having to drop down and take sub 500 teams in. This year, that's completely out the window. There are a bunch of teams with losing records playing in bowl games. And at the same time, you have MAC teams with winning records that aren't going anywhere. So it's a very much of a have and have not kind of a thing. The Power Five and the Group of Five. It's really kind of a crazy situation. And those of us who follow college football a little bit closer, it's really a shame. When you're UAB, which is, and I'm going way down the rabbit hole here, but I don't know how many people remember they actually dropped football a few years ago.
Yeah.
And there was such an outcry in the community that they raised enough money to bring football back after dropping it. So now they're all the way back to winning Conference USA. And as of right now, as we record this, they don't have a bowl game to go to. Hopefully that gets fixed. But, kind of a crazy situation. Well, everything else. This is like Alice in Wonderland, basically, for sports this year. Everything is upside down. Everything is not like what we have seen in the past and probably will ever see again. So, very strange. But one thing has continued, an annual tradition that did not get canceled this year or postponed or anything, put on pause, and that is National Signing Day. And you had some really cool stories there, starting out with a player from Merrillville. And if you could maybe run us through some of that stuff. I know that was kind of a crazy day, a very hectic day for you, but you had some really cool stories there.
Yeah, that was definitely a crazy day just because normally I'd probably be going to, a signing day for a marquee player or whatnot, just trying to get some of that visual, to add to the story. But considering COVID-19 and everything going on, I was like, you know what? I've talked to all 7 of our Division I signees all year and throughout their careers, and I had all their numbers, and I was like, you know what? You're going to just play, basically you're going to just play a little Russian roulette and see who picks up the phone. So I definitely want to start off with Maryville and Phil Gunn, just because this is a guy who is an outstanding offensive lineman. However, he was injured for the majority of Maryville's season, and I never really had the chance to write about what happened or inquire about what happened. I just knew he had a leg injury and he was out. And to be honest, Mike, all this time I thought, okay, he just has this. I saw him at games and stuff. I thought he had a high ankle sprain or something like that. He's being super cautious, college potential there. Don't want to rush back and ruin your chances of going to the next level. Mike, it turns out that he broke his right femur in practice, and I had no idea that he even had surgery. Like I said, that he had a broken leg. Because when I saw him, he was just he had some crutches and this soft cast that I saw on it. So it was a interesting experience and really a roller coaster year for him personally, just because he started off at Morton. Morton canceled their fall contact sports, so he and a few others transferred to Maryville to keep playing. He gets eligibility at Maryville, plays the first 3 games, and then boom, has a awkward hit in practice and then breaks his leg. So it was a tough year for him just because it just didn't go how he envisioned it at all. So it was really cool that right after his injury, right after he got surgery, he got a call from Ball State, him and his mom, and they told him not to worry, your scholarship's fine. To hear that during a pandemic is great, and to hear that during a pandemic after you had a season-ending injury is even better. So that put him at ease, and he was able to sign officially with Ball State. So that was awesome, Mike. I think that was a really cool story to share just because I don't think anybody else really told that story. And frankly, it was just me being nosy, okay, well, the season's over. What happened? I know you didn't play. And I didn't want to necessarily write about it during the season just because I didn't want to take away from the team and the guys who were playing, and I don't think Phil would have wanted it to be that way anyways, but this was a day to kind of celebrate everything he's been through as well as his teammates. He was one of 3 guys from Maryville to sign Division One. We got De'Ara Kelly going to Bowling Green, and then we have JoJo Johnson going to Notre Dame. You know, I joke with him. I said, "You're famous now. You know, you can't forget about me as a local reporter." But yeah, those 3 from Maryville. Then we had 2 more from Valparaiso with John Hoffer going to Western Michigan, Cooper Jones going to Indiana, and then 2 more from Hobart. We got Bobby Babcock going to Illinois State, and then Zach Vo joining Hoffer at Western Michigan. So it was a fun day. I didn't even bother reaching out to the coaches because I talked to coaches so often, and I was thinking, you know what, like, who can better tell me about today than the players? And I talked to Phil's mom, actually, because she was right there with him through all the ups and downs of his injury. And she was at every game with him, sitting beside him, you know, in the cold, no matter what. She was at every game. I remember going to Indianapolis, Bishop Chatard, and she was there. She had drove all the way to Indianapolis with Phil, even though he couldn't play, and was sitting on the sidelines in the cold, you know, to get, kind of console her son and cheer on her other sons, as she called it, on the field. So that was a cool story to share, and something to kind of just put a positive spin on, like I said, a really tough year for Phil.
Yeah, you know, and honestly, so he's one of the Morton kids, and obviously JoJo's another one.
Yeah.
And
in the air.
Right, but JoJo, you know, I don't know that I can't remember a recruit taking off like this in our area. I mean, to go to, you know, from some mid-major, what was it, Northern Illinois first, then to Cincy, and then to Notre Dame. I mean, that's something that doesn't happen, basically, and especially in a short season, a COVID season. I mean, that's just remarkable that, you know, and I mean, and I guess it's a testament to the power of film, basically, because, you know, he was a MAC recruit, you know, a MAC to AAC recruit before, and then all of a sudden he's a Notre Dame signee, and that's based on what he did this year. People saw him as a pretty good player coming out of his junior year, and they saw him take a real leap forward as a senior, which, you know, I mean, you saw a lot of that. You saw Maryville play quite a few times, and, you know, I mean, we've seen the highlights too, even those of us who didn't see Maryville play. I mean, we've seen the stuff on Twitter, you know, I mean, and JoJo is clearly a generational talent, and that's just you know, one of the great success stories of 2020, and just really, and I say it's an improbable story, not because he's not talented or not that he doesn't deserve it, but just the fact that so many kids had such a hard time getting seen this year.
I think honestly, Mike, I think part of it was you know, him being super talented, and 2, he got better. Like I saw him play at Morton a couple times, and I saw him play at Maryville a bunch of times. He got better, even though he went to a higher program and like a bigger class. He was not just on, like, you know, getting more publicity. He got more publicity and more eyes on him because he played at a bigger program and his team had a lot of success. But he got better. Like, he got a lot better. And then number 3, you know, Mike, they got lucky with the pandemic. They only missed 1 game this year.
That's true.
It wasn't even their fault. So, you know, if he goes to Valparaiso and has that same experience where I think Valpo missed, maybe, I think they played like 5 regular season games or something like that before going into the postseason, would it be different? Like, would he get that offer? But he had a chance to really and consistently show he was one of the best players in Indiana on any given night. And I mean, he had a couple plays where I was sitting there in person, like, I remember, I can't remember which team, it might have been Crown Point, where they threw like a back, they threw a fade to the pylon, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, that pass is completely overthrown. And, you know, he just hits another gear, Mike, accelerates and catches the ball with ease, and he's got about 5 yards between him and the closest defender. Yeah, another one against Crown Point where he caught it and like in the flat, and he's at like maybe he's inside the 5-yard line. He juked like two of the Crown Point defensive backs, and then literally walked into the end zone. And I'm like, stuff like that is just you can't teach that. You can't.
No.
He's just a better athlete. Like when you have them dead to rights and you have the right coverage, and he still scores. I'm like, well, that's just JoJo being JoJo. So it was fun to see, and definitely a ride for me. I mean, I wrote 3 recruitment stories, and I joked with him in the last one. I was like, is this it? Like, is Notre Dame it? And he definitely told me that was it. And I mean, hey, they're in the college football playoff, premier program that's known all over the country. I think everyone kind of knew when he got that offer, that's where he was going to go. And I mean, he's an Indiana kid, so anytime you get an offer from the Golden Domes, that's a pretty big deal, and one that is definitely worth writing about. And honestly, it was cool to kind of joke with some of his teammates now, because I mean, JoJo, he's blown up. I could not get in contact with him on signing day, and I wasn't even disappointed, just because I knew as I was checking his Twitter feed, he was doing like, TV interviews, radio interviews. He was, doing stuff for the Notre Dame football Twitter handle and things like that. So it was a lot going on for him that day, and I was like, you know what? Like, the little JoJo is now big JoJo, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that segues to mentioning Crown Point to our next football story, which is that Kevin Enright has resigned as the Bulldogs coach. Actually a pretty good run.
Mm-hmm.
He won 3 sectional titles, and winning a title in that class is not easy.
No.
At all.
No.
And they gave Merrillville a heck of a game last year.
Mm-hmm.
In the sectional too, lost 10-9. So one of the things that I kind of thought about this a little bit. It felt like Crown Point usually got better as the season went along, which is a testament to the coaching staff, because you come in and you come up with the best plan you can have, and then if maybe one kid looks like he's not in the right position, you move some kids around, or you shake up your playbook a little bit. But that's one of the things that we saw over Kevin Enright's tenure, is that the Bulldogs usually got better by the time the season got down to nitty gritty time. And sometimes in high school sports, especially when you're dealing with public schools, you're dealing with who's walking through the door. And this is not a knock on Crown Point's talent at all, but that's just the reality.
Mm-hmm.
This is who you have, and you work with who you have. And you try to do the best you can. But again, 3 sectional titles is not to be sneezed at by any stretch of the imagination. So now CP is looking for a football coach, and that'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, we have 2 Duneland schools who are looking for coaches, because the LC coach Tony Bartholomew, hope I'm saying that right?
Right.
But
Bartholomew, right? Yes.
Yeah,
right.
he resigned as well. So those are 2 marquee programs that I'm sure I'll be getting I guess an update on, maybe at 4 p.m. on a Friday about who's going to be taking over the program. But all jokes aside, I called Kevin Enright on Friday after I got the news that he had resigned. Didn't get a call back, but I left him a message and told him thank you. He was always a guy that was pretty straightforward with me, straight shooter, and someone that I think a lot of his players respected. So I think it will be, like you said, someone who has to kind of come in and kind of keep that success going. I know this year they were down a little bit, but they had the pandemic and things like that. They also had to be affected with their schedule. But, they played Maryville pretty well last year. And for those of you who kind of forgotten, Maryville was top dog last year as well, them in Valparaiso. And it was kind of expected that Maryville would run all over them and do whatever they wanted in the sectional championship. And it went right down to the wire, literally. So it was a great game, and I definitely think that he did a lot for that program. So we'll have to see. His record is 51 and 45 over 9 years, and he had the 3 sectional championships from 2016 to 2018. So definitely nothing to sneeze at, and definitely if you were a player there, you had a chance to be a champion if you were there during those years, and you can't take that for granted.
And it feels like this is a really Maryville and heavy podcast, but that leads us into the next item, and we are into Generation Next. TJ Lux, as we recall, stepped down as coach last year. Bo Patton took over, and one of the reasons TJ stepped down was so he could spend a little bit more time with his family. And we have the next generation of Luxes playing at Maryville and putting on quite a show. AJ Lux, TJ's son, had a big game against Munster, and Munster is actually their first game, which was kind of delayed because of the pandemic, obviously. But I guess you were pretty impressed with AJ.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see. I had saw him in Crown Point season opener against Ileana Christian. He had his first career start against Munster, and he hit 7 threes. He had 21 points. It was all threes. He was 7 of 12 from downtown, and he hit 5 threes in the third quarter alone. And it was just some great shooting, man. I mean, he's a pretty mild-mannered kid, but he had some emotion there. And I asked him after the game, we were asking questions like, the typical, how did it feel to get that hot? Did you expect it to start today? What do you think about your first career start? Blah, yada, yada. And I was like, you know what? What about your dad? I'm like, your dad's right there on the bench. So I was like, what is he saying to you as you're putting up these shots? And well, I guess what's that like to have your dad as your coach? And he kind of let out a grin. And he's like, man, he just kept telling me to keep my elbow in. So that was pretty cool, just because even as a father who would, I guess normal fathers who aren't coaches will probably be cheering and things like that. And I was kind of watching TJ after every shot, and it wasn't like this surprised look or like this really big passionate outburst, but I guess it was like those small little tuck your elbow in after every shot. So that was pretty cool to see. And I think Crown Point's rolling. They've got a pretty good team. They got a team that's been together for a while. Some of their top guys have been together for a few years now. And then with AJ stepping up like he did, if he can have that type of production, he's only a sophomore, but if he can, be like a marksman for them, that would be really good. He's also 6'4", Mike. So he's got his dad's height. He's kicking in, and I'm thinking if you're a 6'4" shooter, similar to like Chris Manis, who's 6'7" over at Lowell, there's not people that's going to stop you from shooting the basketball. I mean, Chris Manis went off for 48 last week against Portage, and again, when he gets to his spot and raises up, not people are going to block that shot. So it was cool to see. It was fun to be back in Munster's gym. And I don't doubt that Munster will be okay. They'll be fine. They have Mike Hackett, who's one of the best coaches in the region. They have a well-experienced program. They just have to kind of get that first game in and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I guess I should, I may have been a little bit fuzzy or vague about that. So TJ was the star at Maryville, went on to play at Northern Illinois, had some records broken by another local guy, Eugene German, as a matter of fact. And again, that's why TJ stepped down, so he could watch AJ play, obviously, at Crown Point. So, and that brings us to, as we usually talk about, my column from the previous week. And this is something I'd written about earlier. Again, Illinois has had almost no sports this school year, and we're at the end of December. Illinois had low-risk fall sports, cross-country, golf, tennis, swimming. Those are the only sports that have been played in Illinois as of right now. Everything is on pause for the winter, even the low-risk sports. And we don't know when there will be sports in Illinois. And one of the consequences of this is that there was no high school football in the fall. I talked to a player named Miles Watson, who is a D lineman from TF South, started as a junior. 2019 had 50-some tackles and was getting some interest. But again, like we were kind of talking about with JoJo a little bit earlier, JoJo got the film and was able to parlay that into a great offer. And Miles Watson, unfortunately, did not have any senior film. Right. Game film, that is. He did go to some combines and some workouts and got some video there. But, one of the reasons that I kind of wrote about him and have been kind of following him, he has been very active on social media, Twitter in particular. He has done a great job of marketing himself, which is what kids have to do these days. And he's also got some help from Bob Padgett, the TF South football coach, who has a lot of connections. He's been coaching around here for quite a while, so he has a lot of college connections too. But that's something that kids have to do more so this year on the Illinois side in particular, because, again, without that senior film, and it's tough to get recruited. And the other thing that I was doing some of the reporting on this story, Bob Padgett told me that Brock Speck, who is the Illinois state coach, spoke at the Illinois football coaches virtual convention a couple of weeks ago and said that scholarships are really going to dry up over the next year, especially at that FCS level, because the NCAA has given everybody who is eligible this year another free year. So no matter what year you are, if you're in the NCAA right now, you get another free year. So that's number one. The other thing that's going on is the transfer portal. Everyone who wants to transfer is going to get one free transfer. Basically, you will not have to sit out the first time you transfer. And I saw something crazy on Twitter today or yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, James, but as of right now, there are over 530 football players in the transfer portal. And for FBS football, there's 120 schools, something in that range, basically. So that means basically every FBS school would have to take 4 transfers for everybody to find a spot, and that's not really what's going to happen. Some people are going to wind up at FCS, I'm sure. Some people may wind up just deciding they're not getting a good enough offer, so they may just call it a career. But what that means for the class of 2022s, the current juniors are going to be, presumably playing a regular season next fall. They're going to have a hard time finding a spot, because you're going to have all of these veterans in the NCAA still around, basically. And also there's the amount of money that's committed to scholarships as well from these schools, a lot of whom have not had fans at their games, and football is the big revenue driver for almost every Division I school. Certainly the schools that have football. I mean, obviously there's schools like DePaul or Loyola that don't have football, so basketball is the revenue driver. But, if you got a football team and you're in D1, I mean, that's the big source of your revenue. And if you're not having fans at games, that's a big hit to your revenue. Anyway, getting back to Miles, there is a happy ending to his story. He is going to be a preferred walk-on at Western Illinois. And it's great for him. He's going to get a chance to play, obviously, if he does well enough. Maybe there'll be some scholarship money down the road. But he's at least knows that he's going someplace where he's going to be on a roster and having a chance to play. And, as you have said many times on this podcast and elsewhere, you love writing about stories about kids who have a chance to get an education paid for. One of your favorite things, as a matter of fact.
Yes,
so,
Mike, there is no better story. And I kid you not, I told every recruit that I talked to on signing day, I was like, man, you've already won. Just keep winning. You don't realize, and they will never realize it because they won't have to actually pay for it, because I didn't realize it until I had to pay for it. But school's expensive. It's very expensive. So I'm always excited when they get a chance to not only play the sport they love, but go do something, productive with that sport. And like you said, getting a degree. So this is these are types of things that can change your life. And one funny thing, just to kind of jump in real quick, is Phil Gunn's mother, Ernestine, she was saying she had tears in her eyes when they got the papers sent to them for him to sign on National Signing Day. And she said, I had to look at Phil and tell him, you don't realize how life-changing this is. And it's just it's just them two, just him and her. And she was saying all I had to was 100%. She said, I don't care where it was. She said, I don't care if it was Ball State, Notre Dame, IU. She was saying, I don't care if it was on the moon, basically. it's free. So it's awesome to see that.
Yeah, and just we're about ready to wrap this up here. And just one more quick note, kind of related actually to, I wrote another story about another TS South athlete, a boys volleyball player. He's not going to play sports in college. He's a pretty good boys volleyball player, but it's going to be at Foreman High School. But his name is Fernando Lopez. He's going to Yale on a full scholarship. It's the holidays, so I'm going to break the rules here a little bit. This is not necessarily a sports story, but I wrote about it and I thought it's kind of cool. So we're going to share a little bit of it here.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and it was kind of crazy. This whole process, this is a national organization called QuestBridge, and what they do is they open it up, and basically what seniors do is they apply, and there were something like 18,000 kids across the country, and they're pretty high requirements, GPA, core curriculum, stuff like that. And there's 18,000 plus kids who apply. They do a cut to about a little bit over 6,000. And those 6,000 then have to present some more materials, recommendations from teachers, stuff like that. And then there are 42 prestigious schools around the country that vet these kids and vet their applications. And out of that group, there's around 1,400 that wind up getting full scholarships. Yale is one of the schools, and it was just a very surreal experience for Fernando because he got the news on December 1st, which is his aunt's birthday, his late aunt's birthday. He and his mom had gone to visit the gravesite, and they were driving back, so it was a somber day, obviously, and he got a message, text or email, I'm not sure which, on his phone, and he was wondering, well, should I open it, because it could be good news or bad news. Do I want to open it or not? And he said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and open it. And he got the news. He was accepted to Yale, and he said that he and his mom both started crying right there in the car. Because, as you say, this is an Ivy League education. I don't know what this costs, probably in this area of $300,000, something like that. Mm-hmm. Just a tremendous thing. He wants to be a doctor. He's going to study molecular biology. So a really smart kid, and he said he wants to do good for the world. He wants to help other people out. So, I'm actually kind of tearing up a little bit just thinking about it, honestly, as we're talking here, because in all of the tough stories that we have heard for this year, to kind of wrap up the year with a story like that is very inspiring and heartening. And, again, as you said, this is a fun story to write. How could you not like writing a story about a local kid, at a local high school whose dream is coming true of getting a Yale education paid for? I don't know what else to say.
And in that, on that note, I guess we'll wrap it up here. But I will say, before Christmas, you should definitely read Mike's story. It'll make you feel all warm and fuzzy and all that stuff. It definitely did that for me. I'm not too proud to admit it. I like the softness every now and then. But it was a great story. A great way to kind of end this podcast. And one of the things you talked about was how great it is for us to write these stories. And all we're asking you as our listeners and readers is to just go and read it. So go enjoy that. Enjoy your families. Wear a mask and stay safe. And we'll tune in with you next week for our last podcast before 2021.